Did you kill Grace Mullane? Jesse Kempson, you're under arrest for the murder of Grace Mullane.
All the three of them read out their victim impact statements. There was emotion there. Yeah, I felt it. You just feel for that family, but he had no emotion. I looked at him.
Some matches ignite romance, others spark obsession, but the darkest connections end in unimaginable tragedy. These are the stories of killers who turn dating apps into hunting grounds. One case stands out, Jesse Kempson, whose twisted actions turned a promising date into a global headline. Buckle up and let's begin.
You smothered her laugh, you crushed her smile, and you left us with the nightmare of the unimaginable.
April 8th, 2016. It started as a normal Friday night in Seattle. Ingrid Lyne, a 40-year-old nurse and mother of three, was excited about her date. She'd met John Charlton on a dating app, a seemingly charming man who shared her love for baseball and lively conversation. They attended a Mariners game together, laughing and bonding, but by the next morning, Ingrid was gone. What unfolded next would reveal a crime so calculated and cold, it would leave Seattle reeling. Garbage bags filled with human remains began appearing around the city, each discovery bringing investigators closer to a horrifying truth.
All right, Ingrid Lyne, a single mom, found just hours after she was reported missing. Well, her body parts were found, including her head, an arm, a foot, found in 3 separate plastic bags inside a recycling bin.
2 days after her disappearance, a disturbing find shook the community. A resident stumbled upon a garbage bag in a recycling bin in Seattle's Central District. Inside were human remains, including a severed head, later confirmed to belong to Ingrid Lyne.
Holding a man suspected of killing a mother of 3 that he met online. Ingrid Lyne's body was found over the weekend. She was supposed to be with the suspect, John Charlton, on the night she disappeared.
Police immediately turned their attention to John Charlton, the last person seen with Ingrid. His story? A tangled web of inconsistencies. Charlton claimed they had both been drinking heavily, and he didn't remember much of the night. But investigators were about to uncover a far more sinister sequence of events. Detectives searched Ingrid's home and found critical evidence, a pruning saw in the bathtub, with traces of Ingrid's blood and tissue still on it. Charlton's DNA was also found at the scene, leaving no doubt about his involvement. Surveillance footage tied Charlton to the area where the garbage bags were dumped, further sealing his fate. What made this case even more chilling was the methodical nature of the crime. Charlton had reportedly killed Ingrid in her own home, dismembered her body, and then disposed of the remains across multiple locations in Seattle. The cold and calculated nature of his actions shocked even the most seasoned investigators. During the trial, prosecutors painted a picture of a man with a long history of violence and substance issues. Charlton had a record of assault and violence, and his relationships were marked by chaos and aggression. His defense argued he was too intoxicated to remember what happened, but the evidence was overwhelming.
He placed her body in a bathtub. Using a pruning saw, he dismembered her body, severing her limbs and head from her torso.
Today is the close of a tragic end to a great life lived and ended far too soon.
Instead, handing down the harshest sentence legally possible, just over 27 years.
Charlton was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 27 years in prison, a punishment many felt was not nearly enough for such a heinous crime.
I do agree that there's no words that can alleviate the pain that I've caused. And for that, I'm truly sorry.
In court, Ingrid's family delivered heartbreaking impact statements. Her father described her as a devoted mother and a compassionate nurse who brought joy to everyone around her. The emotional toll on her young daughters was immeasurable, with the loss leaving a permanent void in their lives. Charlton, in stark contrast, sat stone-faced as the verdict was read. His lack of remorse further infuriated Ingrid's loved ones and the community, cementing his place in their minds as a remorseless predator. Our next case takes us to Australia, where a late-night Tinder date led to a shocking tragedy.
They both wanted uncomplicated, fast sex, and hooking up on the dating app Tinder was the perfect way to do it. But when Gable Tosti met Warina Wright 2 years ago, their night of passion ended in death.
The Gold Coast of Australia is known for its stunning beaches, lively nightlife, and glittering high-rises. A paradise where thousands of tourists come to relax and let their guard down. But on one warm August night in 2014, a young woman's final evening on vacation ended in tragedy that would haunt an entire nation. 26-year-old Warina Wright, visiting from New Zealand, had matched on Tinder with Gable Tosti, a confident and well-groomed 28-year-old. The plan was simple, a casual date filled with fun and lighthearted conversation. But what began as an ordinary night in paradise quickly unraveled into chaos. Hours later, Warina's body was discovered on the pavement beneath Tosti's 14th floor apartment. Her life was cut short, leaving behind questions that would ignite a firestorm in the media and the courtroom. Was this a tragic accident, or did something far more sinister take place that night?
Like, I was alright at first, and we, had sex in bed, and then after that, she kept drinking.
The evening started like any other Tinder date. Warina arrived at Tosti's high-rise apartment in Surfer's Paradise, a neighborhood renowned for its energy and ocean views. The two shared drinks and chatted, the night brimming with unspoken possibilities. But as the hours passed and alcohol flowed, their friendly banter began to sour. Tensions escalated rapidly, leading to an argument that spiraled out of control. In an effort to defuse the situation, Tosti locked Warina out on the balcony, leaving her trapped 14 stories above the bustling streets below. Panic consumed her. The edge of the balcony must have felt like the edge of the world. Desperate to escape the confinement, Warina attempted to climb down, but in the darkness her grip failed. The next moment was sheer horror. Warina plunged to her death, her body hitting the pavement with a force that echoed across the quiet night.
Just 27 seconds after Warina Wright is locked out on the balcony, she falls to her death.
The scene left police and residents shocked. How had an innocent night out ended in such devastating loss? And more importantly, could Tosti have prevented this tragedy? As investigators pieced together the night's events, a critical clue emerged. Tosti had recorded hours of audio on his phone. The recordings captured the rising tensions, angry exchanges, and Warina's terrified cries leading up to the fatal moment.
You guys stole my
I should
so
never.
That's why I'm calling them.
Should have never given you so much to drink. I thought we were gonna have fun.
Well, where's my shit?
The audio painted a picture of the chaos inside the apartment. Heated arguments, physical struggles, and ultimately the sound of Tosti forcing Warina onto the balcony. "You're lucky I haven't thrown you off my balcony," he allegedly said, a chilling statement that gripped the public's imagination. Tosti claimed he acted in self-defense, stating that Warina had become aggressive. He argued that locking her on the balcony was an attempt to protect himself and defuse the conflict. But investigators noted the evidence. Warina's body bore over 80 injuries, bruises and scratches that hinted at a struggle.
Crown prosecutors are alleging that Gable Tosti was not on the balcony at the time Warina Wright fell to her death from his Surfer's Paradise apartment.
When the case went to trial, it became a media sensation. Prosecutors argued that Tosti's reckless actions, though not physically violent, directly led to Warina's death. The defense maintained that she was in control of her own actions and that Tosti had no responsibility for the tragic fall. The jury was tasked with answering a difficult question. Could someone be held accountable for a death caused by coercive behavior, even if there is no direct physical harm? After a tense and highly publicized trial, the jury delivered its verdict. Gable Tosti was found not guilty of both murder and manslaughter charges. The court determined that while his behavior was deeply troubling, locking Warina on the balcony, taunting her during the argument, there was no legal basis to hold him accountable for her decision to climb over the railing. The law required evidence of physical violence or intent to harm, neither of which the prosecution could prove.
Mr. Tosti is very happy with the result. He's relieved that this matter is now behind him and he's looking forward to moving on with his life. He thanks all those people that have supported him through this and realises just how tragic this has been for many people.
The ruling left many Australians divided. Some believe the verdict was a fair reflection of the legal evidence, while others felt it highlighted flaws in the justice system, arguing that actions like Tosti's, while not technically criminal, could still have devastating consequences. In the courtroom, Warina's family sat in quiet agony. Her mother, hands trembling, listened to the harrowing audio recordings of her daughter's final moments echoed through the room. The cries, the panic, the sound of her daughter's life slipping away. It was an unimaginable pain that no family should endure. On the opposite side of the room, Tosti sat calm and composed, his expression blank as the verdict was read. For many watching the trial, this lack of visible emotion only deepened their outrage. How could someone remain so stoic after such a tragedy? For Warina's loved ones, the acquittal brought no closure, only a profound sense of loss.
Could you describe the last couple of years for us, Mr.
Tosti's a pig!
This sort of reaction from people, does that affect you at all, sir?
The case sparked national debates about personal accountability and the risks of meeting strangers through dating apps. Warina's death served as a sobering reminder of how quickly situations can escalate and how fragile life can be when trust is misplaced. Now we turn to the unsettling case of Daniel Drayton, a man who used dating apps as a tool to find his victims.
It turns out he is anything but. Police in New York were searching for Drayton for the July 17th strangling murder of 29-year-old nurse Samantha Stewart.
In the summer of 2018, the warm streets of Queens buzzed with life. and for Samantha Stewart, a young and ambitious nurse, life was full of promise. At 29 years old, she was building her career, nurturing her close-knit family bonds, and looking forward to a bright future. But what Samantha couldn't have known was that her trusting heart and search for connection would lead her straight into the hands of a sinister predator. Daniel Drayton, a man who used his charm and confidence on dating apps like Tinder, seemed like a perfect match. With a calm demeanor and a disarming smile, he could make anyone feel safe. But beneath his facade hid a deeply disturbed individual, one whose violent compulsions would claim Samantha's life in a way no one could have anticipated. By the time police uncovered the true extent of Drayton's crimes, Samantha's death would be just one part of a dark and terrifying pattern.
Stewart and Drayton met on Tinder. In a press release last week, Queens County District Attorney Melinda Katz said Drayton was a, quote, charmer online, but was in fact an alleged sexual predator.
Samantha and Daniel first connected on a dating app. Their conversations were light and engaging, and for Samantha, meeting him seemed like a normal part of modern dating. But this wasn't a chance encounter. It was a carefully planned trap. On the evening of July 16, 2018, Samantha invited Drayton to her home in Queens. At first, everything seemed fine, but as the night unfolded, Drayton revealed the darkness lurking beneath his charming exterior. What happened next was nothing short of horrifying.
A 29-year-old nurse found raped and strangled in her Queens apartment. Law enforcement traced her brutal murder to one man, Daniel Drayton.
In the privacy of her bedroom, Drayton strangled Samantha to death, ending her life in a brutal act of violence. Her family became concerned when Samantha failed to respond to calls or texts. Hours later, their worst fears were confirmed when they discovered her lifeless body. She had been left in her bedroom with signs of a violent struggle. Samantha's death wasn't just devastating, it was the tip of the iceberg. Investigators soon realized they weren't dealing with an isolated crime. Drayton was a suspect in other assaults and murders across state lines, and his history painted a chilling picture of a man who hunted women through dating apps to satisfy his violent urges.
The paper reporting that cops in New York found Drayton's car at JFK Airport and were able to track him to LA, likely saving this North Hollywood woman's life.
Drayton's ability to evade capture ended just days after Samantha's murder. Authorities tracked him to Los Angeles, where he had lured another woman into his web. He had taken his latest victim to a hotel room, where he held her hostage and harmed her. By the time law enforcement arrived, the scene was one of absolute terror. Drayton was arrested in the hotel room before he could claim another life. The investigation that followed revealed the true extent of his crimes. Samantha's murder was not an isolated act. It was part of a disturbing, multi-state crime spree.
Yeah, when authorities arrived at that North Hollywood apartment, 27-year-old Daniel Drayton may have been moments away from committing his 8th murder.
Drayton claims his actions were not his own, blaming what he called demonic control. But investigators saw through his excuses. The evidence was undeniable. From DNA tying him to multiple victims, to eyewitness accounts that described his patterns of manipulation and violence, Drayton's crimes were methodical and predatory. He used dating apps to target women, gain their trust, and isolate them before committing acts of unspeakable violence. His charm was a weapon, and he wielded it with chilling precision.
It took a court order to get a crime spree suspect in court today. Daniel Drayton pleaded not guilty to attempted murder.
In the courtroom, the full scope of Daniel Drayton's actions was revealed. He faced charges of first-degree murder for Samantha Stewart's death, along with numerous charges related to his other victims. The evidence presented was overwhelming, and there was no doubt about his guilt. Drayton was sentenced to life in prison, a punishment that reflected the magnitude of his crimes. For Samantha's family, the verdict brought a sense of justice, but it could never erase the pain of losing her.
Then she's always out walking the dog, and she says, well, he wasn't interested in me, but I'm like, he could have attacked you. I mean, he's a nut.
This case wasn't just about one man. It was a wake-up call for society. Drayton had exploited the anonymity of dating apps to hunt his victims, using technology as a tool for violence. The case sparked conversations about online safety and the importance of vigilance when meeting strangers. In court, Samantha's family delivered heartbreaking victim impact statements. Her brother described the unimaginable pain of losing a sister who had been the glue of their family, someone who had dedicated her life to helping others. Tears streamed down their faces as they recounted her kindness, her ambition, and the bright future that had been stolen. Drayton, however, showed no remorse. His cold, emotionless demeanor sent a chill through the courtroom. He sat silently, unmoved by the grief and anger surrounding him. For the families of his victims, this lack of humanity made the pain even harder to bear.
All of this was happening. He was being arraigned. Through his attorney, his public defender, he pleaded not guilty. He'll be back in court August 14th. Slumped in the corner, obviously wanted to stay away from any cameras except the one camera from the sheriff's department that was videotaping his every move.
Samantha's murder left a permanent scar on her family, but they vowed to keep her memory alive. She wasn't just another victim. She was a daughter, a sister, and a caregiver whose life had been taken far too soon. Her story became a call to action, a reminder to stay vigilant and to demand greater protections against predators who use technology to exploit and harm. Now we shift focus to Bailey Boswell, a Tinder match that would take an unthinkably dark turn.
Charges have been filed against Aubrey Trail and Bailey Boswell, the two persons of interest in the disappearance and death of Sydney Loofe. Charges of first-degree murder and improper disposal of human skeletal remains were filed yesterday in Saline County.
In November 2017, Sydney Loofe, a 24-year-old from Nebraska, was looking for a fresh start after struggles in her personal life. Like many others, she turned to Tinder. Her match? Bailey Boswell, a charming woman with an inviting smile and a story that seemed intriguing. Sydney eagerly planned a second date with Bailey, but little did she know that meeting would be the last chapter of her life. The night of their date, Sydney texted a friend saying how excited she was, even leaving her location pinned for safety. When Sydney didn't show up for work the next day, her family grew concerned. After a frantic search, investigators uncovered a chilling discovery. Sydney's dismembered remains, packed in trash bags, scattered in rural Nebraska.
But after weeks of searching, Loofe's body was found in rural Clay County near Edgar, Nebraska in December. She died of suffocation.
The police soon zeroed in on Bailey and her boyfriend, Aubrey Trail, who were linked to Sydney's disappearance. Surveillance footage captured Bailey and Aubrey buying tools like saws and bleach, items investigators believed were used to carry out their grisly crime. Bailey and Aubrey's twisted scheme unraveled during questioning. Aubrey claimed Sydney's death was an accident during a bizarre group fantasy. However, prosecutors painted a far darker picture. Sydney had been lured into a trap. Text messages revealed Bailey had groomed Sydney for days, building trust to carry out their deadly plan.
She did not survive. This death was up close. It was personal. Strangled her, face to face, eye to eye. Squeezed the life out of her.
In court, chilling details of the couple's obsession with dark fantasies left the jury stunned. Evidence showed they had planned to kill for months, targeting vulnerable women through dating apps. In 2021, Bailey Boswell was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, narrowly avoiding the death penalty. Her partner, Aubrey Trail, received a death sentence, cementing their roles in one of Nebraska's most haunting crimes. The courtroom was filled with emotion as Sydney's family spoke of a light extinguished too soon.
Greatly missed by many. She was a great person, and we love her so much. A lot of people do, obviously, in the family.
Sydney's parents described their unimaginable grief, calling Bailey a monster who betrayed their daughter's trust. In court, Bailey showed little remorse, maintaining a cold, detached demeanor that only added to the heartbreak of Sydney's loved ones. The community mourned the loss of a kind-hearted young woman whose life was stolen by calculated evil. Up next, we dive into the case of Jesse Kempson, where a seemingly ordinary date turned into a crime that would send shockwaves around the globe.
Did you kill Grace Mullane? Jesse Kempson, you're under arrest for the murder of Grace Mullane.
It was December 1st, 2018 in Auckland, New Zealand. Grace Mullane, a 22-year-old British backpacker, was on a solo journey to explore the world. After celebrating her birthday with a newfound sense of adventure, she matched with a charming man on Tinder, Jesse Kempson. The pair agreed to meet for drinks, unaware that this encounter would mark the beginning of a chilling and tragic story that would make international headlines.
The jury watched CCTV footage of Jesse Kempson and Grace Mullane on their Tinder date in central Auckland, bar hopping, drinking, and eventually kissing.
Grace and Kempson were spotted on CCTV, chatting and laughing as they visited various bars in Auckland. But behind Kempson's friendly demeanor was a man hiding dark intentions. The pair ended up at his apartment, where a horrifying sequence of events unfolded. Kempson would later claim their night turned consensually rough, but the evidence told a different story. Grace was strangled to death, a chilling act Kempson would try to pass off as an accident. As Grace's family grew concerned after not hearing from her, the search for the young traveler began. Her disappearance gained media attention, and local authorities launched a full-scale investigation. It was Kempson's behavior that began to raise suspicions.
CCTV footage from the following morning showed Kempson buying a suitcase and cleaning products, hiring a carpet cleaning machine, picking up a rental car, and driving out to West Auckland to buy a shovel.
While Grace's family prayed for her safe return, Kempson went to great lengths to cover his tracks. He purchased a suitcase and cleaning supplies, then searched for ways to dispose of her body. Security cameras captured him calmly wheeling the suitcase containing Grace's remains out of his apartment, later burying it in a shallow grave in the Waitakere Ranges. When questioned, Kempson initially denied involvement but quickly fell apart under scrutiny. Police discovered disturbing internet searches on his devices, including tutorials on how to dispose of a body. His web of lies unraveled, exposing him as a cold and calculating predator. In court, Kempson's defense tried to paint the incident as a tragic accident during consensual rough intimacy, but the jury didn't buy it. The evidence was damning. Grace's cause of death, manual strangulation, along with Kempson's actions afterward, left no doubt about his intent.
Do you find the defendant, Jesse Shane Kempson, guilty or not guilty? Guilty.
In February, Jesse Kempson was jailed for life with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years.
Kempson was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. The trial revealed chilling details of his predatory behavior, including claims from other women who accused him of violent assaults. Grace Millene's tragic death sent shockwaves across the globe, sparking conversations about the dangers of dating apps and the vulnerability of women traveling alone. In court, Grace's father delivered a powerful victim impact statement, describing his daughter as fun-loving, adventurous, and full of life. The pain etched on her family's faces was palpable as they demanded justice for Grace.
All the three of them read out their victim impact statements. There was emotion there. Yeah, I felt it. You just feel for that family, but he had no emotion. I looked at him.
Kempson showed no remorse during the proceedings, maintaining his innocence with an unsettling detachment. His sentencing brought some solace to Grace's grieving family, but the loss of their beloved daughter remains an unfillable void. Up next is the case of Ali Abulaban, whose tragic action shocked everyone who knew him.
Okay, what can I get you? Hey, handsome. What the fuck you call me? Sorry, man.
Ali Abulaban, known online as Jin Kid, was a social media personality who gained a following for his comedic impressions, particularly of characters like Tony Montana from Scarface. While his content brought him internet fame, his personal life unraveled in a series of devastating events.
His 5-year-old daughter's iPad, and when he heard his wife and another man talking, he went to her home and shot them both to death. Then, still armed, he picked up his daughter from school.
On October 21, 2021, Ali entered the apartment he had previously shared with his estranged wife, Anna Abulaban, armed with a handgun. The couple had been experiencing significant marital difficulties, with Anna recently requesting that Ali move out due to ongoing issues in their relationship. In the weeks leading up to the killings, Ali had allegedly installed a spyware device on an iPad left in the apartment, allowing him to eavesdrop on Anna's conversations.
According to prosecutors, Anna asked her husband to move out in October of 2021, and he checked into a hotel. A few days later, Ali snuck back into the apartment with the key he allegedly copied to get in and trashed the space while his wife was gone.
According to prosecutors, Ali drove to the downtown San Diego high-rise where Anna lived. Surveillance footage later confirmed his entry into the building. Ali entered the apartment using his copy of the keys. Upon finding Anna and Rayburn together, Ali immediately confronted them in a heated altercation.
He went back to the apartment with a gun. He reportedly shot Rayburn Barron 3 times at close range, in the neck, cheek, and the back of the head.
The details of what transpired next were pieced together by detectives. Ali allegedly shot Rayburn first, firing multiple rounds into his body at close range. He then turned his weapon on Anna, who had attempted to flee or shield herself during the attack. She too was shot multiple times, succumbing to her injuries almost instantly.
Prosecutors say just a month before her murder, Anna filed a domestic violence police report against Ali after he allegedly pushed and injured her in front of their daughter.
After committing the murders, Ali fled the scene, leaving behind the lifeless bodies of Anna and Rayburn in the bloodied apartment. He drove to his daughter's school, picked her up, and placed her in the car. As he drove, Ali made calls to family members, admitting to what he had done. It was his relatives who contacted law enforcement, prompting a rapid response. Police located Ali later that evening and arrested him without incident. At the time of his apprehension, Ali was in possession of the firearm believed to have been used in the killings. Forensic analysis and witness testimony strengthened the case against him, revealing premeditation and planning rather than a moment of spontaneous rage. Ali was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and held without bail. His trial, which began in spring 2024, centered on whether the murders were premeditated, first degree, or a crime of passion, second degree. During the trial, prosecutors described the sequence of events as methodical and deliberate. The prosecution argued that Ali's decision to install the listening device demonstrated a pattern of control and jealousy. They painted a picture of a man consumed by anger and a desire for vengeance, claiming he had ample opportunity to rethink his actions, but instead carried out the murders in cold blood.
Because he caught me in a really vulnerable moment, like I was literally like so upset in the elevator. He knew I was upset.
The defense countered by portraying the crime as a heat-of-the-moment act, arguing that Ali's emotional state had been exacerbated by untreated mental health and substance issues. They claimed that discovering Anna and Rayburn together pushed Ali into a state of blind rage, leading to a crime of passion rather than premeditation. Jurors, however, sided with the prosecution, concluding that the evidence showed Ali planned and executed the murders with intent. On May 29, 2024, they returned a guilty verdict on 2 counts of first-degree murder, with special circumstances for multiple killings.
In the Superior Court of the State of California, in and for the County of San Diego.
After the verdict, Rayburn Barron's sister, Jordana, expressed that while nothing could bring her brother and Anna back, the decision ensured Ali could no longer harm anyone else. In September 2024, San Diego Superior Court Judge Jeffrey Frazier sentenced Ali to 2 consecutive terms of 25 years to life, plus an additional 50 years for a firearms enhancement. Judge Frazier criticized Ali's lack of genuine remorse, describing him as a selfish person destined to die in prison. The judge also drew parallels between Ali's online persona and his real-life actions, suggesting that Ali's cold-blooded demeanor mirrored the character he often portrayed in his videos.
With all the abuse, if I had known.
As the sister of murder victim Anna Abulaban started her victim impact statement in court.
During the sentencing hearing, several of Anna's and Rayburn's loved ones addressed the court, voicing their pain and anger. Anna's sister denounced Ali for breaking his promise to care for Anna, instead subjecting her to a life of misery. Rayburn's sister also expressed her hatred towards Ali.
None of this is your fault. Your mom loved you so much, and I love you so much.
In the end, the judge sentenced Abulaban to the maximum.
Ali also spoke, pleading for leniency and citing untreated mental health and substance issues at the time of the killings. He apologized to his daughter for his actions and expressed hope that he could one day reunite with her, though Judge Frazier dismissed these pleas, asserting that justice required Ali to face the consequences of his actions. Despite Ali's apologies and claims of regret, the court upheld the life sentence, ensuring he will spend the rest of his days behind bars. Ali Abulaban's crimes were horrifying, and the motive behind them seemed clear. But the case of Terrion Thomas leaves many unanswered questions. What could have driven another TikTok creator to allegedly murder a 69-year-old therapist?
And has more than 4 million followers on TikTok. And I will admit, I used to watch some of his videos. Now, according to people who follow him online, Thomas has been behaving more and more erratically.
Terrion Thomas, a TikTok creator known by the handle Mr. Prada 456, rose to online fame in late 2022, amassing over 4 million followers. His notoriety stemmed largely from his practice of replicating content, often shot for shot from other creators. Despite being called out for his behavior, Terrion dismissed the criticism, describing himself as unbothered in response videos. However, by 2024, Terrion's name would be linked to far more serious allegations.
The next day, Dr. Nick's body is found. Cause of death, blunt force trauma. Police got a search warrant for Mr. Prada's apartment and found blood, weapons, and...
On September 29, 2024, the body of Baton Rouge therapist William Nicholas Abraham was discovered wrapped in a blue tarp on the side of a Louisiana highway. The 69-year-old had died from blunt force trauma, according to the medical examiner. As investigators worked the case, evidence soon pointed to 20-year-old Terrion as the prime suspect.
Now it's Thomas's actual mugshot that's making rounds on social media. He was detained on Tuesday in Dallas, Texas, after he fled from a traffic stop where he was spotted driving a dead man's car.
A search warrant was executed for Terrion's apartment, where crime scene investigators uncovered signs of a violent struggle. Blood found at the scene was later confirmed to match William Abraham's DNA. Investigators also recovered sharp objects and other weapons. Security footage from the apartment complex revealed that William had arrived at Terrion's apartment around 11 p.m. on September 28th, wearing the same clothing he was later found in.
Thomas has been behaving more and more erratically. For example, he posted a video of himself shaving his head, leaving little patches of hair all over.
Statements from residents of the apartment complex describe seeing Terrion dragging a large, tarp-wrapped object down the stairs in the early hours of September 29th. Witnesses reported that Terrion appeared to struggle as he loaded the object into a car, which was later identified as belonging to William Abraham. A manhunt for Terrion ensued, and he was located and arrested in Dallas, Texas in early October.
Mr. Prada, no stranger to the camera, is later seen dragging something wrapped in a blue tarp and putting it into the doctor's car.
Upon his arrest, Terrion refused to speak to authorities. Initially, he was charged with unauthorized use of a vehicle, aggravated criminal damage to property, resisting arrest, second-degree murder, and obstruction of justice. After his extradition to Louisiana, prosecutors announced during a court hearing that the murder charge would be upgraded to first-degree murder. East Baton Rouge Parish Commissioner Jermaine Guillory ordered that Therrien be held without bond, though a bail hearing was scheduled for January 2025. Therrien was assigned a public defender.
Wrapped in a tarp on the side of the road in Louisiana. Deputies say his body was hidden partially in the woods about 60 miles away from where he worked.
As news of Therrien's arrest spread, social media erupted with speculation about his possible motive. Some viral posts on TikTok and X claimed a connection between Therrien and a 2015 case involving William Abraham, who had been accused of inappropriate conduct. However, no charges were brought against William in that case, and his defense attorney, Jarrett Ambeau, stated there was no evidence linking Therrien to the earlier allegations. The East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office also confirmed that they had found no indication that Therrien was a client of Williams or connected to the 2015 investigation. Detectives are still working to determine the motive and clarify the relationship between Therrien and William, which remains unclear. Up next, we move to the case of Trey Sessler, a teenager whose brutal actions shocked everyone around him.
So, after watching Welcome to the NHK and learning about the NEET, which are people that are not in employment education.
Trey Eric Sessler launched his YouTube channel, Mr. Anime, in September 2006, where he gained a following by posting reviews of various anime television series. On another channel, Lenscap Productions, he created skits. In these videos, Trey would often display his growing collection of weapons, hinting at a fascination with violence and danger. He became known for his online persona, but it was in April 2012 that things took a darker turn. Trey informed his followers that he would be taking a 2 to 3 week break from posting, telling them that Mr. Anime was planning something. At the time, many fans assumed he was simply stepping away for a short hiatus, unaware of the chilling plans Trey was about to carry out.
Oh, how you doing, everyone? It's Mr. Anime. Or you can call me Trey. You can call me the guy that does the video game reviews, or you can call me the guy that does all the gun stuff now.
On March 19, 2012, Trey began his violent spree in his family's home in Waller, Texas. Early in the afternoon, Trey lured his mother, 45-year-old Rhonda, into the garage. In a brutal act, he shot her 4 times in the head at point-blank range. Trey then moved inside the house where his brother, 20-year-old Mark, was. Without hesitation, he shot Mark as well. Trey's father, 52-year-old Lawton, had been asleep when the gunshots rang out.
All the gun stuff now. Yeah, according to police in Texas, this guy studied murder before becoming a mass killer.
When Lawton woke up, disoriented and alarmed, he was shot by his son at close range. After killing his entire immediate family, Trey wrote disturbing messages around the house, including one that read, "I love my mom, dad, and brother. God forgive me because I cannot forgive myself."
Everybody was scared about if it was going to happen or not. Everybody's paranoid.
Family members were at the home today collecting sentimental items. Investigators say besides the gore...
Despite the violence, Trey wasn't finished. He loaded his black Ford Mustang with a rifle and hundreds of rounds of ammunition, then drove to Waller High School, his alma mater. There he parked his car and sat in the lot for a while, contemplating his next move. However, rather than carrying out the mass shooting he had planned, Trey eventually drove to a friend's house. By the time he arrived, the bodies of his parents had been discovered, and Trey was apprehended by law enforcement at around 9:30 p.m. the same day.
Houston and Texas. Here's the home. Police say Sessler also admitted killing animals, shooting at closed businesses and schools in the middle of night, also setting fires, and he had plans to...
Crime scene investigators who examined the Sessler family home described it as a war zone. The scene was filled with blood, with large pools of it staining the floors and splattered on the walls. Furniture was overturned and broken items were scattered throughout the rooms, as if the house had been torn apart in the violent struggle. Bloodstains marked the path Trey had taken after each shooting, leading investigators to reconstruct the chilling sequence of events.
Shooting large animals, has talked about setting a few small grass fires. He has taken rifles and shot at buildings.
Trey was arrested and charged with the murders of his mother, father, and brother. During his police interview, Trey admitted to the killings, explaining that he had murdered his family to prevent them from feeling ashamed when he carried out a mass shooting at his former high school. However, Trey claimed that the reality of the situation hit him too hard, and he ultimately decided to back out of the attack. He acknowledged that the violent acts he committed were not an isolated incident. as he had previously engaged in violent behavior and confessed to killing animals and firing his weapons near schools late at night, though he had no prior criminal history before the murders.
Officials say he researched serial killers online and even graded their work. He told investigators.
Further investigation into Trey revealed that he had been heavily influenced by past mass murder incidents, particularly the Columbine High School shooting in 1999 and the 2007 Virginia Tech massacre. Trey had spent a significant amount of time researching both events and seemed to idolize the perpetrators. Authorities found that he had a document on his computer where he had graded and studied the actions of 8 different serial killers. This chilling insight into his mindset showed how deeply Trey had immersed himself in the world of mass violence and murder.
A neighbor says Trey Sessler stayed here from time to time.
He'd just pull up in his garage and stay however long, a couple of days, and leave.
In the days following the murders, Trey contacted other relatives, offering apologies for his actions. He expressed remorse, but many found it difficult to believe the sincerity of his words, especially after the horrific nature of the killings. The small town of Waller, Texas was left in shock as the community struggled to comprehend how such a brutal and senseless crime could unfold in their otherwise peaceful neighborhood.
Top 8 serial killers graded about what action they took, but he also studied all kinds of mass shootings, just like the Columbine shooting and other school events.
On August 2, 2012, Trey pled guilty to all charges against him, including 3 counts of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a sentence that would keep him behind bars for the rest of his life. Trey remained silent during the hearing, offering no further explanation for his actions. The decision to give him life instead of the death penalty left many residents of Waller feeling disappointed. They had hoped for a harsher punishment, believing that Trey's crimes warranted the ultimate penalty. Trey Sessler's horrifying actions against his own family exposed a deeply troubled mind. But the next case brings us to another shocking act of violence within a household. Claire Miller, a young girl whose actions against a family member left an entire community reeling.
She stabbed her sister Helen, who had cerebral palsy, on the morning of February 22, 2021. Her parents testified at trial that they had lost Helen and didn't want to lose Claire as well to prison.
In the early morning hours of February 22, 2021, the Manheim Township Police Department was called to the Miller family home after 14-year-old Claire Miller, who had an active TikTok presence, made a 911 call, admitting that she had killed her sister. When the officers arrived at the scene, they found Claire outside, standing in the snow with blood on her pajama pants. Claire led the officers inside, directing them to the bedroom where Helen Miller, 19 years old, lay lifeless. Helen, who had been born with cerebral palsy, relied on a wheelchair for mobility and was unable to walk. The Miller family had adapted their home to meet Helen's needs, ensuring that she had a safe and comfortable space to live.
A teen accused of killing her sister will be staying in Lancaster County until her trial. 16-year-old Claire Miller will be tried as an adult. The judge determined Miller will stay in Lancaster County Youth.
Claire was taken into custody immediately. Under Pennsylvania law, homicide is not considered a juvenile crime, meaning that Claire, despite her age, had to be charged as an adult. This legal requirement was not a decision made lightly, as it involved treating a young teenager with the same legal process reserved for adults charged with serious offenses.
Claire Miller was a kid who had it all, but was obsessed with homicide. Citing thousands of text messages she sent a friend expressing a desire to harm someone, saying even though she loved her sister Helen, she stabbed her to death.
The legal process that followed focused heavily on Claire's mental health. She was found to have been experiencing a mental health crisis at the time of the incident. In Pennsylvania, third-degree murder is defined as an unintentional killing that results from reckless or depraved actions. It is distinct from first-degree murder, which requires premeditation, and second-degree murder, which involves killing occurring during the commission of another serious crime.
Claire Miller was sentenced to 12 and a half to 40 years in prison, pleading guilty to third-degree murder. Lancaster County judge overlooking the case determined.
In 2023, Claire, now 16, pleaded guilty to third-degree murder. This plea was significant because it indicated that Claire accepted responsibility for her actions, but did not admit to premeditation or intent to kill. By pleading guilty, she acknowledged that her behavior showed a disregard for human life, which resulted in her sister's death.
Miller was mentally ill but not mentally disabled when imposing the sentence. Back on February 22nd of 2021, Manheim Township Police discovered Miller's 19-year-old sister.
During the sentencing hearing, District Attorney Heather Adams described the case as particularly tragic, emphasizing that Helen's vulnerability and Claire's actions made the situation even more painful. Heather Adams noted that while the mental health crisis Claire experienced was a factor, it did not erase her responsibility for Helen's death. The prosecutor pointed out that the court needed to balance the need for accountability with Claire's young age and mental state at the time of the crime.
Via video conference, she's charged with killing her disabled sister Helen in their Manheim Township home in February.
The judge ultimately sentenced Claire to 12.5 to 40 years in prison. This decision aimed to hold her accountable for what had happened, but also left room for the possibility of rehabilitation over time. Claire's guilty plea and the subsequent sentencing highlighted the complex challenge of balancing justice with compassion, particularly in cases involving minors and mental health issues.
In Manheim Township, called police a little after 1 a.m. and said she had killed her sister. Officers responded to the home where Claire pointed them to a bedroom.
For the Miller family, this case was devastating on multiple fronts. They had already endured the unimaginable pain of losing Helen, who had been cherished and an integral part of their lives. The grief of that loss was compounded by the reality that Claire would now face years of imprisonment. Further, the family was left to try to come to terms with the painful contradiction of loving Claire and mourning Helen, knowing that the actions of one had changed their entire family forever. Claire Miller's tragic actions within her own family were shocking, but the next case reveals a tale of manipulation and greed with devastating consequences. Kelsey Turner, a former model whose entanglement in a deadly scheme, showed how far some will go to protect their secrets.
Judy was worried about this woman, 25-year-old Playboy and Maxim model Kelsey Turner. Judy says Kelsey was extorting money from Dr. Burchard.
Kelsey Turner was once a prominent figure in the adult modeling industry, appearing on the covers of Playboy Italia and Maxim, and amassing a considerable following on social media. She spent her time between Salinas, California and Las Vegas, Nevada, working to build her career. However, as the modeling industry proved to be highly unpredictable, opportunities began to dry up, and Turner faced significant financial struggles. By this point, she was also a single mother.
Burchard had a history of helping others and engaging with young, attractive girls he met online, like Kelsey. That's according to his friend, who did not want to be identified.
In the late 2010s, Turner entered a financial agreement with Dr. Thomas Burchard, a 71-year-old child psychiatrist. Over several years, Burchard provided her with over $750,000, covering expenses like her car insurance and the rent for her Las Vegas home. According to Judy Earp, Burchard's fiancée, many people asked for the doctor's help, but Kelsey was different. Judy claimed that Kelsey had often requested money under the guise of needing it for her son's medication or other emergencies.
Judy Earp, his girlfriend of 17 years, was back at their home in California and sensed the doctor was in trouble.
By early 2019, Judy, who suspected that Burchard was experiencing the early stages of dementia, urged him to end the relationship. Burchard agreed and planned to confront Turner on March 1, 2019, to tell her he would no longer provide financial support. He never returned from that trip.
Maybe I ought to just come home on the next flight.
Judy Earp reported Burchard missing, prompting an investigation. On March 7th, police discovered Burchard's abandoned Mercedes-Benz in the Las Vegas desert. Inside, they found blood, gloves, and a baseball bat. The trunk contained a body wrapped in bedsheets, identified as Dr. Burchard through a credit card found at the scene. During the autopsy, the medical examiner concluded that Burchard had died from blunt force trauma, ruling his death a homicide.
Repeatedly that these are not, the kind of people you want to be associating with.
Detectives interviewed Judy, who shared details about Burchard's plans to cut ties with Kelsey. When they searched Kelsey's home, they found evidence of blood and an attempt to clean up the scene. Using cell phone data, authorities tracked Kelsey and her roommates, Diana Pina and John Kennison, to the Rio Hotel. By the time officers arrived, the three were gone.
Were living and where investigators believe Dr. Burchard was murdered. Kelsey's roommate, Diana Pena, told a grand jury that Kennison attacked Dr. Burchard with a baseball bat.
The investigation took a key turn when Burchard's journal was found, containing entries about accusations Kelsey made against him involving inappropriate images of children. Despite these allegations, no evidence of such material was found on Burchard's electronic devices. Judy stated that the accusations had deeply troubled Burchard due to his professional background.
Kelsey's roommate, Diana Pena, pleaded guilty to accessory to murder and is expected to testify at their trials.
Kelsey, Diana, and John were eventually located. Fingerprints from Burchard's car matched those of Diana and John. Diana admitted to police that Kelsey had been upset when she learned Burchard planned to cut her off financially. She said Kelsey had ordered John to confront Burchard, which led to John fatally hitting him with a baseball bat. John then drove Burchard's car with the body in the trunk and abandoned it in the desert.
It looks like she received an own recognizance release, so she's getting some pretty preferential treatment here, and it's going to be interesting to see if the jury thinks, in fact, she could be the bad person.
Diana Pina agreed to a plea deal for being an accessory to murder and was sentenced to 3 years of probation. John Kempson pled guilty to murder and received an 18 to 45-year prison sentence in 2022. Kelsey Turner took an Alford plea, acknowledging the strength of the evidence against her without admitting guilt. She was sentenced to 10 to 25 years in prison and will be eligible for parole when she is 36 years old in 2029. During her court proceedings, Kelsey Turner's behavior drew attention, as she was often seen smiling and posing for the cameras, which many found surprising given the serious charges she faced.
3.75 years that she has already spent incarcerated and still shows no sign of rehabilitation.
While some interpreted her actions as an attempt to appear confident or maintain composure, others saw them as evidence of indifference to the crime and its consequences. Currently, Kelsey Turner is serving her sentence at the Florence McClure Women's Correctional Center in Nevada. The actions of these Tinder killers left a trail of heartbreak and shattered lives, their courtroom reactions as chilling as the crimes themselves. But there's more to uncover. The next video on screen dives into even more shocking cases and the twists that kept the world on edge. Keep watching.